Cacti are plants that seem to exist in defiance of the logic of the world. They live where everything else dies, in places where the sun burns like fire. The wind cuts the skin to the bone, and the earth resembles ash more than soil. In landscapes where silence carries the weight of stone and night falls suddenly like a blade, the cactus stands unwavering, as if it were created for the sole purpose of proving that life can find a way even in the most merciless corners of the planet. It is a plant that asks for little and endures everything. It gathers water where none exists. It survives weeks, months, sometimes years of waiting, patiently storing every drop that so much as grazes its skin. In a world that demands speed, the cactus chooses the strategy of persistence, deep, quiet, anchored in extraordinary resilience. Its spines, sharp like words spoken in anger, are both a testament to strength and a reminder to approach with caution. This is a beauty that should not be touched thoughtlessly. A cactus is a plant that may seem simple, even harsh at first glance, but once you begin to understand it, it reveals a surprising depth in both structure and origin. It belongs to the family of succulents, a group of plants shaped by nature to survive, where every mistake would mean immediate death. Succulents are masters of water storage, yet cacti stand out even among them. Their tissues act like internal reservoirs, ingeniously adapted to gather moisture and hold it for as long as necessary, sometimes even longer. They are not merely fleshy plants. They are organisms engineered by evolution with surgical precision. Their skin is thick, waxy, often shining in the sun like metal, all to minimize the loss of precious water. Their stems have taken over the role of leaves, developing into structures that resemble columns, spheres, barrels, or twisting arms, forming shapes so distinctive that they are impossible to mistake for anything else. Leaves responsible for photosynthesis in most plants have here been reduced to spines, tiny, sharp, often densely packed needles that function both as protection and as shade. Because in the desert world, every shadow, even one measured in millimeters, matters. The cactus family is astonishingly broad, encompassing hundreds of species that, despite sharing similar survival strategies, can look radically different. Some grow like sprawling trees, others press themselves close to the ground as if trying to hide from the sun's gaze. Some produce soft, serpentine stems that ripple like snakes, while others stand upright like columns of an ancient temple. But all share one defining trait: their belonging to the world of succulents. Plants armed with patience, resilience, and an astounding capacity for adaptation. A cactus is therefore not merely a desert plant. It is a symbol of evolutionary triumph, an example of how far nature can go when pushed to its limits. It is living proof that survival does not always mean strength in the obvious sense. Sometimes it means a soft interior hidden beneath a hardened armor, ready to endure, to wait, and to seize every opportunity that appears on the edge of the desert. Cacti stand out in the world of succulents so clearly that it feels as though nature decided to give them their own separate category. At first glance, they can be mistaken for other water-storing plants, but when observed more closely, they reveal traits found nowhere else. The most important of these are areoles, small, fuzzy or felt-like pads from which spines, hairs, and sometimes even flower buds emerge. Areoles are the signature of cacti, their biological autograph, unique and unmistakable. Other succulents may have spines, may have fleshy stems, but they do not have areoles. Those are what make a cactus a cactus. The spines, often viewed merely as protection against animals, are far more complex than simple needles. Unlike the thorns of other plants, they are not modified branches or parts of buds. They are transformed leaves, wholly adapted to a hostile environment. They can reflect sunlight, create a delicate microshade, regulate the temperature of the plant's surface, and even capture moisture from cool desert nights. A cactus does not need to chase water. Its spines help it hold on to what little it receives. Equally characteristic is the structure of the stem. In the cactus world, the stem becomes everything: a water reservoir, a photosynthetic organ, the supporting framework of the entire plant. It is built with a network of water-storing tissues and elastic walls that allow it to swell after rain and shrink during drought without cracking even slightly. This rhythm, breathing with the desert, can be felt in its body, sometimes smooth, sometimes ribbed, sometimes covered with a geometric mosaic of natural segments. Each of these shapes is a survival strategy, the result of thousands of years of adaptation to landscapes where most plants could exist only in stories. This is what sets cacti apart from other succulents. Their bodies are not merely storage units but perfectly specialized structures. Their spines are not decoration but tools. And their areoles are unique centers of life. In a world where only the toughest players survive, cacti do so not through brute force but through deliberate, refined architecture. And perhaps that is why they fascinate so deeply, because within their apparent simplicity lies a design bordering on genius. Cacti are like living manifestos of what evolution can achieve when pushed to the edge of possibility. In a brutally unpredictable world, where rain appears less often than shade and daytime temperatures can tower several dozen degrees above nighttime cold, cacti have not merely survived, they have triumphed. They are models of extreme adaptation, plants perfected by nature with such meticulousness that their survival strategies resemble feats of engineering. Their bodies act like reservoirs of energy and water, designed to use every trace of moisture that appears in their surroundings. They can absorb water instantly after a rare rain, expanding their volume to the brink, and then slowly draw upon this supply over many weeks. Their internal tissues behave like a sponge, and their flexible cell walls allow them to shrink and expand without damage, a mechanism rarely found in the plant world, yet essential where a single mistake could mean death. Photosynthesis in cacti also works differently from that of most plants. At night, when the air becomes cooler, cacti open their stomata to exchange gases and take in carbon dioxide. During the day, they remain closed, minimizing water loss. This unique process, known as chem photosynthesis, is an evolutionary masterpiece, a solution that allows the plant to live where traditional photosynthesis would be suicidal. Their spines are both armor and parasol. They reflect light, reduce heating, and create tiny pockets of cool air right at the plant's surface. They protect against animals but also prevent moisture loss. Their arrangement, length, and density are not accidental. They are the result of thousands of evolutionary trials and errors, which eventually produced plants nearly impervious to desert realities. Even the way cacti grow is subtly refined. Many species develop ribs or segments that function like accordions, allowing the plant to expand and contract without tearing. Others form underground tubers that store water hidden from predators and the sun. There are those that grow in clusters, shrubs, or columns, using the shade cast by their own bodies to survive the peak of the heat. As a result, cacti are among the best adapted plants on Earth. Where other organisms struggle for every day, the cactus remains unshaken, not because it is immune to everything, but because its body has been perfected to survive. They are masters of the dry world, living icons of evolutionary creativity, proof that even in the harshest environments, there is always a way to grow, to bloom, and to inspire awe. Cacti occupy a swath of the world so vast and varied that it's hard to believe we're talking about a single family of plants. Their natural range stretches from the southern edges of Canada, where winter snow can cover the ground for weeks at a time, all the way down to the windswept austere plains of Patagonia, where rain is rarer than wind and temperatures can drop without warning. This enormous strip of the Americas, more than 14,000 kilometers long, is the true kingdom of cacti. And although they don't occur naturally on any other continent, within this single one, they have managed to inhabit nearly every ecosystem imaginable. From deserts and high plateaus to tropical rainforests and chilly mountain regions, the most spectacular cactus populations grow in deserts, which form their most iconic habitat. In Death Valley, in the Sonoran and Chihuahuan deserts, and in the Mexican Central Desert, you can find the towering saguaros whose silhouettes resemble the guardians of the desert's empty horizons. Some of them live more than 150 years and reach the height of a two-story building, sustaining life where annual rainfall can be less than what a European summer storm delivers in half an hour. Here, cacti make perfect use of every rare drop of water, spreading their roots wide and shallow just beneath the soil surface to absorb moisture the instant it appears, before the sun can turn it into steam. These desert giants have become symbols of extreme botanical adaptation, yet the desert is only the beginning of their potential. Cacti also grow in places where most people wouldn't even think to look for them. In the tropical forests of Central and South America live species so different from their desert relatives that an untrained eye might not believe they belong to the same family at all. Epiphytic cacti such as Epiphyllum, Ripsalis, or the beloved Christmas cactus do not grow in the ground but hang from tree branches. Their roots do not search for water deep in the soil. They draw it from the air, which in tropical forests is so saturated with moisture that droplets settle on anything that stands in their way. These cacti develop flattened, leaf-like stems that catch dew and gather the light that filters through the dense canopy above. In places of half-shadow and constant humidity, cacti discovered an entirely new strategy for survival, proving that there is no single correct form for this plant family. Even more astonishing are the Andean cacti, which live at altitudes where the air is thin and dry and nights can be bitterly cold. In the Andes of Peru, Bolivia, and Argentina grow species such as Oreoserius and Echinopsis, forming compact, often hairy shapes that protect them from freezing temperatures and intense UV radiation. Their spines can be so dense and so white that they resemble fur. That is no accident. This pale coat reflects sunlight and creates an insulating layer that allows the plant to survive in conditions where searing daytime heat meets nighttime. Frost. You can also find cacti in dry forests, on semi-arid savannas, on steppes, and even clinging to rocky slopes full of cracks, where the plant survives on just a few centimeters of soil. Some species, like the famous living stones of the Areocarpus genus, blend so perfectly into their surroundings that they become nearly invisible, matching the colors of stone and sand. Others defend themselves from extreme sunlight by growing so close to the ground that their surface touches the cooler layer of air hugging the earth. When you lay out this wide spectrum of habitats, it becomes clear that cacti are not plants of a single climate, a single niche, or a single kind of landscape. They are masters of adaptation, thriving across a continent that stretches from the polar-tinged chill of northern Canada's prairies to the scorching dryness of the Atacama, from the misty depths of the Amazon rainforest to the rocky heights of the Andes. If plants have their legends, then cacti are among those heroes who can survive anything and bloom with such force that even the desert itself must concede their triumph. Asterisk. The structure of a cactus is one of the finest examples of how far evolution can go. When life is forced to survive at the very edge of possibility, every element of its anatomy, from the shape of its stems to the arrangement of its cells, is a response to a specific environmental challenge. A cactus has no unnecessary organs and no accidental features. Everything in it serves one purpose: to capture water, protect it, and use it for as long as nature allows. The construction of a cactus is therefore a kind of biological architecture, precise and intentional, in which even the smallest detail has meaning. The most important part of a cactus is its stem, which has taken over the function of leaves, trunks, and reservoirs all at once. In the world of cacti, the stem is the true core of the design. Leaves, too costly in terms of water loss, disappeared almost entirely, and their role shifted to the massive, fleshy stems. This is why cacti take on such distinctive forms: cylindrical, columnar, and spherical. Each shape is a strategy for conserving water and maintaining optimal internal conditions. Cylindrical stems are the classic form, seen in many desert cacti. This shape distributes the water-storing tissues evenly and minimizes the surface area exposed to direct sunlight. Cylindrical stems are often ribbed. Those ribs behave like an accordion. After rain, the cactus swells and expands. During drought, it contracts without damaging its body. It is a brilliant biomechanical solution. The plant lives in rhythm with the desert, breathing in its moisture and its dryness. Columnar stems, which can reach several dozen feet in height, resemble organic towers rising above the desert plains. This shape stabilizes the internal temperature the greater the mass. The more slowly it heats and cools, protecting delicate cells from extreme fluctuations. Such a column can live for many decades, sometimes centuries, storing water like a gigantic living reservoir. Spherical stems, commonly found in smaller species, represent one of the most efficient shapes in nature in terms of surface-to-volume ratio. A sphere minimizes sun exposure while maximizing water storage. Small round cacti in the Andes or Mexico can survive for months without a single drop of rain, because their form nearly eliminates unnecessary loss. High mountains, fierce winds, powerful UV radiation. These plants endure all of it thanks to a structure so compact and logically engineered that it feels almost ideal. Beneath the surface of the stem lies another layer of genius. The cactus epidermis, coated with a thick layer of cuticle, acts as a shield against water evaporation. Sometimes it is smooth, sometimes waxy. Sometimes it has a faint metallic sheen, all designed to reflect as much light as possible and maintain the perfect temperature within the tissues. Beneath it lies the water-storing flesh, capable of holding such vast amounts of moisture that some cacti can survive for several years without rainfall. The water-bearing tissues inside the stem are soft, absorbent, and flexible. Each cell works like a microscopic barrel, expanding and contracting along with the entire plant. After rain, these tissues stretch as they fill with water under controlled pressure. During drought, the pressure falls, the cells shrink, and the plant slims down yet remains fully functional. This is why a cactus, even after prolonged drought, does not crack or collapse. Cactus spines are one of the most symbolic elements of the plant's structure, features that have practically become the definition of this entire family. But despite appearances, spines are far more than weapons of defense. They are highly specialized structures derived from transformed leaves, reshaped by evolution into organs that are radically minimalist yet incredibly efficient. Each spine is like a microscopic mechanism involved in protection, thermoregulation, water acquisition, and even ecological processes that influence the plant's entire surroundings. Spines grow from areoles, those tiny, velvety points on the surface of the stem that function like miniature production centers. Areoles are precisely what distinguishes cacti from all other succulents, and the presence of spines makes them masters of survival in the desert. Cactus spines are built from tissues saturated with lignin and cellulose. Their structure is dry and dead, yet they perform functions absolutely essential to the plant's life. The most obvious role is defense. In a world where every gram of water is worth its weight in gold, a plant that stores vast amounts of it becomes a target for many animals. Spines form a physical barrier, but it's not just about mechanical deterrence. Dense armament discourages even large mammals, turning the plant into a difficult prize, one whose attempt to access could end in serious wounds. Many species have evolved long, massive spines as hard as needles. Others have thin but brutally sharp ones capable of piercing skin at the slightest touch, but defense is only the beginning. Spines are also an extraordinary microclimate system. They create a layer of shade above the stem's surface, lowering its temperature by several degrees. On hot days, this delicate, almost invisible layer changes the conditions so dramatically that it prevents overheating and reduces evaporation. For a plant that cannot afford even the smallest loss of moisture, this protection is absolutely fundamental. Yet the most fascinating function is tied to water acquisition. Although cacti grow in extremely dry environments, the air, even in the desert, still contains some moisture. Spines act like condensers. At night, as temperatures drop, microscopic droplets of dew or fog begin to form on their surface. The shape of the spines, their texture, and even the angle of their arrangement influence how quickly the condensed moisture slides down the stem into the soil, where it can be absorbed by the roots. It's a subtle process, invisible to the naked eye, but one that allows the plant to gather small yet life-saving amounts of water. Spines also provide mechanical support. They protect the plant from sudden gusts of wind by breaking the airflow into smaller streams. This slows down water loss from the plant's surface, and the cactus itself becomes more stable and less prone to damage. In mountain ecosystems where wind can be destructive, this feature is crucial. Some species possess spines with remarkably specific shapes, hooked like tiny claws, feathery, papery, or hair-like. Each type serves a function tailored to the plant's exact environment. Feather-like spines capture fog, armor-like spines defend against desert animals, and fine silky bristles reflect sunlight, creating a silvery halo around the stems that acts as a protective shield against the sun. Spines also play an ecological role. They protect the soil around the cactus by slowing the airflow just above the ground and reducing evaporation. They create microhabitats for small organisms that benefit from the shaded, cooler environment among the spines. From afar, cactus spines may look like simple defensive tools. But up close they reveal themselves as refined constructions, evolutionary solutions to nearly every challenge that life brings in dry, hot, or extremely variable climates. Spines are more than weapons, they are instruments of survival, thin as needles yet fundamentally important. Within them lies the essence of the cactus's remarkable evolutionary genius. Asterisk. Areoles are the most remarkable and characteristic structures that cacti have developed. Tiny, biological command centers that determine everything the plant can produce beyond its basic mass. From them arise spines, hairs, hooked thorns, flower buds, and sometimes even new offsets. Without areoles, a cactus would not be a cactus. They are what make this plant family so unique, so recognizable, and so perfectly adapted to extreme environments. One could safely say that an areole is the place where nature's ingenuity gathers on the plant's surface in a point no larger than a few millimeters dot at first glance. An areole may seem unassuming, a small tuft of hairs, a miniature cushion, or a darker spot on the green stem. Yet beneath this modest surface lies a highly specialized structure. Areoles are modified lateral buds that, over the course of evolution, have become far more specialized than the buds of other plants. Unlike most succulents, which produce spines but not from organizational centers, cacti possess these miniature production platforms, regularly distributed across the stem. And from them may emerge organs of different purposes, depending on the plant's age, season, or environmental conditions. The most obvious role of the areole is the production of spines. But the process is far from random. Each areole can generate a specific set of spines: central, lateral, radial, long, short, hooked, feathery, or needle-like. Their number, length, and type depend on the species, often so distinctive that botanists can identify a plant by a single fragment of an areole. It is from these points that the incredible defensive structures arise, making the cactus nearly impenetrable to desert herbivores. But the true magic begins when an areole switches to flowering mode. A cactus does not have separate leaf and flower buds. Everything originates from the same point. When the plant decides that conditions are favorable, an areole can shift from producing spines to producing flower buds. It is a decision that is energetically costly yet strategically crucial. Cactus flowers can be spectacular, huge, vibrant, opening for only a few hours or a single night, pollinated by hummingbirds, bats, or moths. And each of these flowers began as a small, fuzzy areole waiting for the right moment to transform into something extraordinary. Many areoles even form dual systems. One part specializes in producing spines, while the other produces flowers. This division allows the plant to remain protected and reproductive at the same time. It is like a factory running two production lines, one for armor and one for blossoms, both operating simultaneously. Independently, yet harmoniously, areoles also give the plant its regenerative abilities. If a cactus is damaged, it is usually from an areole that new structures emerge: young stems, branches, or new generations of spines. This is yet another demonstration of how crucial this tiny zone is to the plant's survival. It is also worth noting that the arrangement of areoles is not random. They often follow spiral patterns consistent with the golden ratio, much like the seeds in a pinnacone or the leaves in a rosette. This maximizes surface efficiency. Spines cover the stem evenly, and flowers emerge at optimal intervals. Thus, areoles are far more than places where the spines sit. They are biological factories, decision centers, survival mechanisms, and the foundation of the cactus's entire life strategy. If cacti could have brains, they would be their areoles, densely scattered, silent, precise, always ready to produce whatever the plant needs to survive another day in a world that offers nothing for free. The root system of cacti is one of the most underrated yet most impressive adaptations, developed by plants living in extremely arid environments. At first glance, a cactus seems like a static organism, a silent mass of green flesh. But beneath the surface lies a network that works like a precisely engineered system for capturing, storing, and distributing water, fast, clever, and extraordinarily efficient. Cactus roots do not have the luxury of slow, gradual absorption. Water in the desert appears rarely and disappears instantly, so the plant must act immediately, without the slightest hesitation. The most characteristic feature of cactus roots is their shallowness. Most of the root system lies just below the surface of the soil, often only a few centimeters deep. This is surprising because in our usual imagination, survival plants are associated with deep, firmly anchored roots. The cactus defies this stereotype. Its strength lies not in depth but in breadth. The roots can extend far beyond the diameter of the entire plant, sometimes 2 or 3 meters across. This extensive radial network acts like a huge living radar, detecting even the smallest traces of moisture before they sink deeper into the ground. This shallow placement serves one essential purpose: to capture water immediately after rainfall. Desert rain often lasts only a few minutes, sometimes a little longer. Drops fall onto hot ground, run across the surface, evaporate. They vanish almost instantly. Cactus roots, positioned so close to the surface, can absorb this brief, fleeting moisture before it disappears. They respond at a speed that astonishes botanists. Upon the first contact with moisture, their metabolic activity accelerates almost instantly, and the tissues begin to absorb water with an efficiency unmatched by the roots of most other plants. When heavier rain arrives, the system works like a giant sponge. The roots quickly fill the cactus stems with water until the plant's flesh swells and tightens, storing moisture meant to last for weeks, or sometimes even months. Water becomes the plant's inner treasure, nurtured and guarded as its most precious resource. But the cactus root system is not just broad. It is also dynamic. Many researchers have observed that during long droughts, cacti can shut down parts of their roots, putting them into dormancy, flattening them, or even allowing them to partially die back under extreme conditions. When moisture returns, the roots can regenerate with astonishing speed, producing new fine absorptive branches. It is as if the entire plant had a built-in emergency system that allows it to match the desert's rhythm, survive the dead season, then instantly return to full readiness. Some cacti, particularly those growing in mountains or jungles, have developed more diversified root systems. They may have thicker, storage roots that serve as additional water reservoirs. Others form aerial roots that absorb moisture directly from the atmosphere. But regardless of the form, the principle remains the same. A cactus must take up water quickly, hold on to it for as long as possible, and use it with the utmost efficiency. The cactus root system is the quiet hero of this story. It does not draw attention. It inspires neither tourists nor photographers. But it is what allows the plant to survive where most life would have long since surrendered. It is the foundation of the entire ecological success of cacti, flexible, fast, clever, and perfectly refined by nature. In a world where water is the most valuable currency, cactus roots are masters of efficiency. Without them, there would be no stems, no flowers, no magnificent spines. There would only be the desert, even more barren than it is today. Asterisk. Water-storing tissues are the heart and core of the cactus, its greatest treasure, greatest weapon, and greatest secret of survival. In a world where moisture is a luxury and rain appears less often than a living creature, the cactus had to build within itself an internal retention system that works like an organic reservoir. Flexible, resilient, and capable of changing its volume according to the desert's whims. These tissues are what make the cactus a plant able to live where most other species would never even attempt to take root. Inside of a cactus is filled with enormous parenchyma cells, highly specialized structures that function like microscopic storage chambers. Each cell can fill with water like a tiny balloon, expanding when moisture is plentiful and shrinking when water runs low. This is remarkable because most plants cannot change their volumes so drastically without damaging their tissues. The cactus, however, is a master of elasticity. Its water storage parenchyma is a biological architecture designed for constant swelling and contracting. The key lies in the structure of these cells. Their walls are thick yet astonishingly flexible, a rare combination that allows the plant to maintain water pressure at a safe level. When rain runs down the stem, the roots immediately channel water into the parenchyma, and the cells act like granaries that must be filled to the brim. Inside the cactus, a delicate network of hydrostatic pressure forms, a force that keeps the plant stable, supported from within like an inflated construction. During drought, the process reverses. The cells release water gradually, according to the plant's needs. This pace is regulated so precisely that a cactus can persist for weeks, months, and sometimes years without a single drop of rain. There is no panic within these tissues. Their task is to manage every drop with perfect rationality, but the ability to store moisture is only part of the story. The water storage tissues are also resistant to rot, infection, and excessive heat. They contain special proteins and mucilage that stabilize the water, prevent rapid evaporation, and protect the cells from damage caused by high temperatures. It is a kind of biological gel, incredibly durable and at the same time remarkably light. Many cactus species also form internal partitions and channels that distribute water evenly throughout the stem. Thanks to this, the plant is not exposed to asymmetric drying, which could lead to cracking. The ribs, so characteristic of many desert cacti, are actually movable outer shells that rise and fall with the filling and emptying of the water-storing tissues. Like a rib cage that breathes with the rain, plant mucilage plays an interesting role as well. It fills the spaces between cells, not only retaining water but slowing its evaporation inside the stem and protecting the cells from damage during volume changes. It is a natural cushioning system that allows the cactus to withstand extreme temperature swings, from the heat of the day to the chill of the night, without losing its precious reservoir. It is also worth noting that water storing tissues serve more than just survival storage. Water functions as a metabolic buffer. It allows the plant to continue photosynthesis even when external conditions are deadly. Cacti use the CAM strategy, nighttime photosynthesis, which enables them to keep life going at a minimal but uninterrupted pace. And the water parenchyma provides the stability needed for this process, acting like biological batteries of energy and moisture. Thus, water-storing tissues are not merely a reservoir, but a complete resource management system, flexible, precise, and resilient. They are the reason a cactus is what it is, a plant capable of storing an entire rainy season like a memory and living on that memory through long, merciless months of drought. It is the cactus's interior, its quiet secret, its absolute advantage in a world where water is everything. Cactus flowers are one of the most surprising phenomena in the plant world, an explosion of color and delicacy emerging from an organism that, at first glance, looks like a hard, rugged structure built solely for survival. And yet, cacti produce some of the most beautiful, astonishing, and extraordinary flowers nature has ever created. Their appearance is always a special event, almost theatrical, because in the world of cacti, blooming is like a rare celebration, brief, intense, and absolutely spectacular. Cactus flowers grow from areoles, the very same structures that produce spines. This alone gives them a certain paradoxical charm. From a place associated with defense emerges an organ made of soft petals, delicate tissues, and fleeting beauty. Through evolution, cacti living in extreme environments developed flowers so dazzling that it's often hard to believe they belong to plants with such harsh, unforgiving forms. Many of these flowers are enormous, sometimes even larger than the stem segment they grow from. Their colors can be striking: purples, reds, yellows, oranges, soft whites, and creams, sometimes with metallic reflections. The petals form intricate, layered arrangements that create geometric, almost perfectly symmetrical shapes. Their centers are often filled with countless stamens and distinctive pistils that attract pollinators from miles away. Yet despite all this beauty, cactus flowers are often dramatically short-lived. For many species, blooming lasts a single day, sometimes just a few hours. Some flowers open at dawn and close before sunset. Others, especially those pollinated by nocturnal creatures like moths or bats, open in the evening, sometimes after months of waiting, only to reveal their beauty for a single night. When morning comes, the petals wilt, collapse, and often never open again. Why so brief? Because the desert offers no time for luxury. The flowers must act fast, blooming only when conditions are ideal. When the temperature drops slightly, humidity rises even a little, and pollinators are active. It's a sprint, a precisely timed effort aimed at the moment with the highest chance of reproductive success. A cactus flower is not decoration. It's strategy, calculation, a survival mechanism in a world where every bit of energy must be used perfectly. What's equally astonishing is how diverse these flowers are. In tropical forests, epiphytic cacti produce huge, fragrant blossoms that often resemble white flames opening in the night. In the deserts of Mexico, tiny spiny spheres burst into bloom so intensely colored they look like stars scattered across the rocky ground. And in the Andes, there are species whose flowers open only at just the right humidity, then disappear quickly, leaving behind only a memory and fruits filled with seeds. Asterisk. Pollination in cacti is a spectacle that unfolds in completely different worlds depending on the time of day. During daylight, their flowers are visited by fast, colorful hummingbirds precise as arrows, while the night belongs to quiet yet powerful bats and delicate moths that glide like shadows. Each of these pollinators forms a precise, evolutionarily refined relationship with the cactus, a partnership built on mutual benefit, strategy, and adaptation so perfect it's hard not to feel awe. In the desert regions of the Americas, especially in Mexico and the southwestern United States. The most important nighttime pollinators are bats from the genera Leptonicterus and Coronicterus. These animals feed on nectar and pollen, and their long tongues set in a muzzle that resembles a miniature version of a hummingbird's allow them to reach deep inside the flowers. Cacti that rely on bats usually bloom at night, opening their flowers just after dusk. Their blossoms are large, prominent, with light-colored petals often white or cream, which reflect the faint moonlight best. They produce a strong scent, often sweet with a slightly fermented note, the exact kind of fragrance bats can detect from far away. A bat hovers over a flower, beats its wings, buries its muzzle deep into the bloom, and drinks the nectar with long, rhythmic motions. Its entire body becomes dusted with pollen, which it carries to other cacti over the course of the night, sometimes traveling several miles. Because of this, bat-pollinated cactus species are extremely efficiently pollinated, and their evolution represents one of the best documented examples of plant-animal co-dependence. In the daylight, the scene changes completely. Hummingbirds arrive, masters of hovering, flying jewels that serve as lightning-fast, incredibly precise pollinators in the plant world. Hummingbirds love intensely colored flowers, reds, fuchsias, oranges. Cacti pollinated by hummingbirds produce long, slender blossoms shaped like narrow tubes perfectly suited to the birds' long beaks and tongues. Hummingbirds burn huge amounts of energy, so their relationship with the cactus is built around quick, easily accessible nectar. In return, the plant gains a mobile, extremely efficient pollinator capable of visiting hundreds of flowers in a short time, carrying pollen with surgical precision. Moths, especially large species from the sphinx moth family, play an equally important role. Flowers pollinated by moths open at dusk, often have a tubular shape, and release a delicate, sweet fragrance that becomes detectable over long distances at night. Moths, hovering motionless before the flower, extend their long tongues just as skillfully as hummingbirds. For cacti, this is an additional strategy that ensures pollination even when environmental conditions force the plant to bloom at night. All these relationships share one thing: precision of adaptation. A cactus never blooms by accident. Its flower has a specific shape, color, scent, and timing for a reason: to attract the right partner. A bat needs a spacious, open structure. A hummingbird needs a long floral tunnel. A moth needs a sweet nighttime aroma it can detect in the dark. Through evolution, cacti have become masters of finesse, producing flowers that are not only works of beauty but also brilliantly engineered survival mechanisms. In a world as unforgiving as the desert, successful pollination is essential for a species to survive. That's why cacti and their pollinators are bound together in an almost intimate way, forming a delicate ecological system that works only when every participant plays its role. There's something poetic in this symmetry. Plants that appear the toughest and most resilient owe their survival to creatures light, fleeting, and incredibly sensitive birds, bats, and insects that, night after night and day after day, write new chapters of this desert story. When you look at a cactus standing alone on the desert horizon, it's easy to fall under the illusion that it is a plant living solely for itself, an isolated, silent creation, cut off from the outside world. Yet the truth is entirely different. Cacti are among the most important organisms of dry and semi-dry ecosystems, not only adapted to extremes but also enabling other forms of life to survive. In nature, they serve as homes, watering holes, shelters, nesting sites, and sources of food. They stand as living pillars of entire biocenoses, and their presence or absence can change the fate of whole landscapes. For many animal species, a cactus is literally a home. In giant saguaros, Gila woodpeckers carve out their nests. These small birds can peck out perfectly round chambers, which are later taken over by other desert inhabitants: owls, small songbirds, and even small mammals. The cavities inside saguaros maintain an almost constant temperature, which on the desert is a treasure. They protect against heat during the day and cold at night. It is in these places that chicks are born and life circulates within the cool, moist interior of the plant. Many small animals, such as lizards, snakes, and rodents, make use of the shade cast by cacti. In the desert, shade is like water, rare, precious, and desired. Although the cactus itself is a master of survival, it creates around it a microclimate gentler than the surrounding scorched ground. Near it, the soil heats more slowly and releases moisture more slowly, forming a small yet significant oasis for life. Insects, too, could not function without cacti. Their flowers, bursting open suddenly during short blooming periods, are true energy stations for hundreds of pollinator species. Cactus nectar is often the only source of sugars across vast distances. Meanwhile, the fruits, juicy, colorful, and full of seeds, become food for birds, coyotes, rabbits, and even desert tortoises. They disperse the seeds often many kilometers away, sustaining cactus populations that would otherwise never reach such distances. It's also important to remember that cacti stabilize the soil. Their roots, wide but shallow, keep the earth from eroding, especially in regions where rains are rare but violent. After downpours, desert slopes without vegetation can literally wash away. But where cacti grow, the soil holds together and stays in place. And yet climate change is increasingly infiltrating this delicate balance. Some deserts, paradoxically, are becoming too hot even for cacti. Extreme temperatures exceed their adaptive abilities. Other regions are experiencing droughts so long that even plants designed to conserve water cannot rebuild their reserves. Climate shifts also cause pollinators to change migration routes, activity rhythms, or ranges. When a bat or hummingbird disappears, a cactus may bloom beautifully but remain unpollinated, which means no fruit, no seeds, and the gradual decline of the population. Some cactus species are already classified as endangered, not only because of climate change but also due to human activity, urbanization, agriculture, and illegal harvesting for the collector trade. Landscapes that for thousands of years were home to these plants are changing in ways that even their extraordinary, adaptive abilities cannot always withstand. In the natural world, cacti are not lonely guardians of the desert, but the foundation of entire communities. When a cactus disappears, the desert does not simply become emptier. It becomes less alive, less diverse, more fragile, and more prone to degradation. That is why every surviving cactus, every refuge of these plants, becomes a symbol of resilience not only for itself but for the entire ecosystem that depends on them. Although cacti seem as tough as rock and resistant to almost everything, they have become some of the most endangered plants on Earth, not because of climate, not because of drought, but because of humans. The paradox lies in the fact that plants created to survive the harshest conditions are now dying due to their value in human eyes. Cacti are one of the most frequently smuggled groups of plants in the world, and collector demand causes entire populations to disappear from the wild within a single season. The problem is not new, but only recently has it reached a scale that poses a real threat to the existence of many species. Cacti rarely grow quickly. Many of them need years to reach even a modest size. Some species of Ariocarpus, Lophophora, or Astrophytum may be several decades old before they bloom for the first time. Plants that nature shaped over tens of years are torn from the ground in mere seconds, stuffed into suitcases, and shipped to private collections in Europe, Asia, or North America. For smugglers, it's easy money. For nature, an irreparable loss. Entire criminal networks specialize in acquiring rare cacti. Smugglers often operate in groups, using GPS devices, drones, and local informants. They travel deep into the deserts of Mexico, Argentina, or Chile and collect everything that has any collector value. Sometimes they dig up entire sites, plants that have existed since the time when humans had no idea that continents drift. There is hardly a more literal way to erase evolutionary history. Written in living organisms. Cacti are protected internationally. Most species are listed in CITES, and their trade requires permits. But the black market knows no boundaries. Online trade in illegally collected plants is flourishing, often sold as nursery-grown, although their characteristic wrinkles and scars reveal their wild origin. Some collectors, eager for wild specimens, deliberately choose those that are deformed or dusty because they know such plants are rare and unrepeatable. To them, it is a trophy, to biologists and ecologists. It is a death sentence for entire populations. What makes matters worse is that many cactus species are endemics, plants growing only in one specific place on Earth, often on an area smaller than a few hectares. One visit from smugglers is enough to destroy an entire unique ecosystem. Collecting just a few plants is often not only a loss for the future population, but also for pollinators, soil, and the whole landscape. In nature, nothing exists in isolation. When a plant disappears, the animal species dependent on it also disappear, and the entire ecosystem begins to wobble. Conservation organizations and local communities are trying to fight smuggling. They register sites, monitor them, run ex situ cultivation programs, and even cooperate with the police and border guards. But in many places, the terrain is too vast and the economic pressure too strong. Smugglers often appear at night, move quickly, and vanish without a trace. The irony is that cacti, almost immortal plants, adapted to scorching heat, cold, and lack of water, now suffer most because of human greed. They can survive a century-long drought, but they cannot survive a single person with a trowel and a backpack. If there is any glimmer of hope in this story, it is growing public awareness. More and more collectors are demanding nursery-grown plants instead of those taken from the wild. Botanists are creating seed banks. Governments are tightening regulations. Projects to reintroduce cacti into the wild are emerging. But one thing is certain: protecting cacti is not just about taking care of the plants themselves. It is about protecting entire ecosystems in which cacti are the foundation, and about preserving the extraordinary, quiet value these plants carry, a story of strength, survival, and the truth that even in the world's harshest places, life is worth fighting for. Although cacti look like plants designed to stand alone among desert rocks, their history is deeply intertwined with humans. For thousands of years, they have accompanied the peoples of the Americas, becoming not only part of the landscape but also a source of food, drink, medicine, dyes, and even objects of worship. In a harsh world where every resource can mean the difference between life and death, the cactus proved to be an extraordinary ally, a plant you can eat, drink, ferment, and process in hundreds of different ways. The best-known example is the prickly pear, Opuntia ficus indica, a plant that became one of the staples of cuisine across many regions of Mexico. Its fruits, known as tunas, are juicy, sweet, full of micronutrients and antioxidants. Their flavor is hard to compare to anything else, slightly watermelon-like, with a hint of melon and a subtle, fresh green note. On hot days, their pink flesh was often one of the few available sources of sugar and vitamins for people living on the arid plateaus. But that's not all. The prickly pear also provides nopples, the young, still soft segments of the pads treated as a vegetable. Once cleaned of spines, they become an ingredient in salads, stews, tacos, scrambled eggs, and even desserts. Their flavor is gently tart, and their texture is somewhat similar to green beans. In indigenous American cultures, nopples have long been used as a remedy for digestive issues, blood sugar regulation, and inflammation. Some cactus species were used as sources of fermented beverages. From agave juice. Though agave is not a cactus, it often grows in the same regions and is frequently mistaken for one. People produced pulque, mezcal, and tequila. But cacti themselves also have fermentation traditions. The juice of young pads of certain prickly pear species can be lightly fermented to create a refreshing, sour, electrolyte-rich drink, perfect for hot climates long before sports drinks were invented. In some regions of northern Mexico, people fermented the pulp of prickly pear fruits, creating a low-alcohol beverage consumed. During ceremonies or on hunting trips, cacti also played a role in survival under extreme conditions. During long journeys when water was scarce, people would cut open the fleshy stems to extract whatever moisture they could. Although the pulp wasn't always suitable for direct drinking, sometimes bitter or containing irritating sap, Proper preparation could save the lives of travelers and herders. Today, the role of cacti as food is experiencing a revival. Scientists are studying their nutritional value and have found that prickly pears show strong potential in combating type 2 diabetes and obesity. They are rich in fiber, vitamin C, calcium, and antioxidants. In haute cuisine, prickly pear fruits find their way into sauces, sorbets, and jellies, while young pads appear in fusion dishes. One cannot forget the role of cacti in dye production. Prickly pear pads host cochineal insects, the source of natural carmine, one of the most valuable red pigments in history. For centuries, it was an export commodity worth more than silver. And even today, it remains widely used in food, cosmetics, and art. Asterisk in harsh landscapes where life must be cleverer than the conditions. Plants have long served as a natural pharmacy. Cacti, soft on the inside, tough on the outside, held a special place in that pharmacy. For the indigenous cultures of the Americas, they were not only food or tools of survival. They were healers, guardians of health. Plants whose power was passed down through generations in family legends, rituals, and the scrolls of ancient knowledge. The cactus best known for its medicinal value is the prickly pear. Its fleshy, firm pads, nupulls, have been used for centuries as a remedy for digestive problems. They contain large amounts of soluble fiber, which slows the absorption of sugars, stabilizes blood glucose levels, and supports gut microbiota. Ancient communities used them to soothe stomach pain, constipation, and inflammation of the digestive tract. Modern science confirms these properties. Prickly pear extracts are now studied as natural support in the treatment of type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. The pulp of the prickly pear was also used externally. A split pad was applied to wounds, burns, insect stings, and abrasions. It worked like a cooling compress, easing pain, moisturizing tissue, reducing swelling, and accelerating healing. Its mucilaginous texture protected the wound from drying out, forming a natural bandage. The Zuni people used crushed segments of prickly pear to reduce swelling after fractures. And in some regions of Mexico, it was applied to scorpion stings, in the belief that it neutralized the venom. The fruits were no less valuable, rich in vitamin C, antioxidants, and minerals. Eaten regularly, they strengthened immunity, supported healing, and aided recovery. The juice was used as a tonic for fever and as a natural source of electrolytes. In desert cultures where water was scarce, any drink capable of replenishing minerals was a treasure. There were also more specialized medicinal plants. Echinopsis pachinoi, San Pedro, and Lophophora William C. peyote played major roles in healing rituals and ceremonies. Their psychoactive effects were not used for recreation, but as tools in medical spiritual work to treat trauma, mental illness, addiction, and even for diagnosis, as traditional healers used them to see the illness and understand its source. Although these plants are now protected, their historical role reveals how deeply rooted the belief in the healing power of cacti once was. The pulp of some cacti was also used as an anti-inflammatory and fever-reducing agent. In Mexico, decoctions of prickly pear were given to children to lower fever or calm a dry cough. Hardened sap was used to make ointments for joints and muscle pain. In Andean communities, cactus extracts were used as tonics to strengthen the heart and improve circulation, knowledge that is currently being examined by pharmacologists studying the potential of bioactive compounds in desert plants. Cacti were also a source of skin hydration. A thin layer of prickly pear mucilage worked like a prehistoric cream, smoothing, healing, and protecting against the sun. To this day, cosmetics made with cactus extracts are produced across Latin America. Valued for their anti-aging, soothing, and barrier-restoring properties. What is remarkable is that most of these traditional applications are more than oral lore. Increasing numbers of scientific studies confirm the medicinal properties of cacti, their ability to lower cholesterol, regulate blood sugar, support immunity, and even inhibit harmful inflammatory processes. Cacti, like the desert itself, hold a richness that is not immediately visible. Hidden in their fleshy stems are thousands of years of adaptation and thousands of years of human knowledge that we are only beginning to learn how to listen to again. Curiosities about cacti are not a dry list of facts. They are more like whispered stories about plants that break the rules of botany as if they follow their own private code. Take their longevity, for example. In a desert landscape, you might see a solitary column standing so long that it remembers the world from 2 centuries ago, a time without railways, without cars, without asphalt. Cacti live for more than 200 years not because time spares them, but because they have learned to manage energy so slowly and so deliberately that every day stretches like a carefully drawn-out second. Even more remarkable is how they react to drought. When rain does not fall for months and the air pulls moisture from everything it touches, a cactus simply shrinks. It reduces its size by dozens of percent, collapsing into itself like a bellows breathing at a quiet, ancient rhythm. It doesn't die, doesn't panic, doesn't fight. It simply enters a state where survival matters more than appearance. And when even the smallest hint of water appears, it swells within hours, as if waking up from a long desert sleep. What's interesting is that not all plants armed with spikes have the right to call themselves cacti. Many people think of aloes or agaves as their kin, but that's only an illusion. A true cactus bears its seal, an areole, that tiny felted cushion from which spines and flowers emerge. Without an areole, you're only a desert warrior in disguise, not a real inhabitant of the sands. Yet cacti can surprise even in city apartments. Despite the belief that they are fussy, many species bloom willingly if you simply let them rest during winter and give them a touch of light in spring. Suddenly, from an unassuming sphere or column, a flower bursts forth so spectacular that it seems more like an explosion of color than a botanical feature. It's a reminder that a cactus is not a harsh plant, only a patient one. There are also desert giants spoken of in hushed tones. Some cacti in the Americas can weigh several tons, resembling rooted towers more than plants. Their hollow, fibrous, swollen stems can hold thousands of liters of water. When you stand next to them, you feel as if you're looking not at a single plant, but at an entire ecosystem sealed within a leathery green column. Cacti live long, shrink, bloom in places where no one expects life, and build silhouettes so improbable they seem to defy logic. Only the desert could have shaped something so resilient and so beautiful at the same time. Beings that don't fight life, but teach us that survival is an art of intelligent adaptation, not brute strength. Asterisk cacti are like silent heroes of extreme worlds. They make no noise. They don't shine at first glance, and yet they astonish the moment you let them speak in their own language. Within their thick skin lies centuries of struggle, strategy, and adaptation that have allowed them to survive where everything else would have surrendered long ago. And perhaps that is why they fascinate us so deeply, because they show that strength doesn't always demand speed, that sometimes the greatest power is patience, and that beauty can be born even from the harshest desert.